In the Netherlands, representatives of several nations from the International Court of The Hague called for a total and immediate arms embargo against the Israeli government. On Thursday, the President of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, called for immediate international intervention to stop the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people. And the Foreign Minister of China asked the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to assume the role of stabilizing an anchor in times of change and turbulence. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The sessions of the International Court of Justice in The Hague on the legal consequences of the Israeli occupation on Gaza Strip reaches its fourth day. The commissioners highlighted the request made by the United Nations rapporteurs to carry out the weapons withdrawn by the Israeli occupation army. The proposal is based on the commitment of the states to guarantee the respect for international peace as it is required by the Geneva Convention. They also assured that the decision of the International Court of January 26th emphasizes the need for this procedure. On Thursday, Palestinians reacted after the Israeli attacks in al-Sawaida in central Gaza, denouncing that the search for survivors becomes complex and remembered that those who dwell in that area are human beings.
They bombed this house next to my father's house. As you can see, the scene speaks for itself. They use bulldozers and simple machines that are only useful for basic tasks. We need heavy machinery that is not available. Unfortunately, our neighbors are finding it difficult to extract any possible survivors, and time is running out. Our message to the world is look at those in the Gaza Strip as human beings. Consider those in the Gaza Strip as human beings, like you.
The occupying forces carrying out the genocidal operation in Gaza abandoned the Nasser hospital, leaving destruction and death behind them. The Palestinian Health Ministry confirmed in a statement the complete withdrawal of the Zionist troops. No hostages, no terrorists, no tunnels to report. They leave the largest hospital in Khan Yunis completely destroyed, where patients and staff are without supplies and medical equipment. Hostilities continue outside this health center, which was also the second largest in the Palestinian enclave. The international organization Doctors Without Borders accused the United States and the United Nations Security Council of encouraging the slaughter of thousands of Palestinians. The Secretary General of this organization, Christopher Lockyer, presented a raw narration of the daily reality of his doctors in the Strip. In a heartbreaking testimony, Lockyer explained how his teams have had to amputate children's limbs without anesthetic, detailed how mothers in labor receive minimal care in unhygienic plastic tents. He also stated that many children confess to their doctors that they would rather die than live orphaned and mutilated. The delegation of the Palestinian movement Hamas, led by Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the movement's political bureau, concluded its visit to Egypt, which lasted several days, according to a press statement issued by Hamas leader's office. The Hamas statement announcing the end of the visit detailed that they held meetings with Israel officials and with the head of the Egyptian intelligence services, Abbas Kamel. The Israeli hostages and the Palestinian hostages were part of the agenda, as well as the flow of humanitarian aid to the north of the Strip and the current tensions around the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The delegation continues the travels, now going to Paris. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called for immediate international intervention to stop the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people. The head of the state made this known during a meeting held in Ramallah with the president of the Red Crescent Society, condemning the policies of assassinations and attacks, both by the occupation forces and the settlers. He also demanded an end to the war of starvation against a civilian population that is being brutally besieged. During the meeting, Abbas blamed Israel for disease, famine, and epidemics because it prevents the entry of food, medical, and humanitarian aid. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. Spain proposes to the Colombian government a cooperation agreement to protect the submerged heritage of San Jose Gallon. The ambassador of Spain, Joaquín de Aristegui, presented the protection proposal at the International Symposium, Perspectives and Challenges in the Investigation of the Recovery of the San Jose Gallon in Cartagena. This heritage sunk in the 18th century near the Cartagena de Indias with a cargo of gold and silver coins was found in 2015. The ambassador added that the proposal could involve the collaboration of international organizations specialized in the field, such as UNESCO, to create a new paradigm for the protection of underwater heritage.
I have the instructions from my government to offer you today the possibility to continue working on the development of a bilateral cooperation agreement in this area that would allow Colombia and Spain to take a historic step because they are able to create a paradigm of bilateral cooperation initially and also in collaboration with the international relations specialized in the field as UNESCO to create a new paradigm for the protection of underwater heritage.
In Brazil, President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva received Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Thursday. Topics of vital relevance were discussed in the meeting. According to official sources, they reviewed the bilateral agenda and issues related to the new global governance and the BRICS. They agreed on the need to face challenges such as artificial intelligence, global conflicts, among other issues. President Lula also reiterated his willingness to cooperate with peace in Ukraine. For his part, Lavrov congratulated President Lula on the organization of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Rio de Janeiro and convened President Putin's message of support for the Brazilian presidency of the group. In Argentina, the Secretary of International Relations of the Workers' Central Union, Gerardo Martinez, met on Thursday with the Deputy Director of the International Monetary Fund, Gita Gonipa, who was visiting the country. Both analyzed the worrisome socio-economic situation and its impact on labor and production. The meeting, which lasted several hours at the IMF's metropolitan headquarters in the capital of Buenos Aires, served, according to the leader, for the organization to obtain first-hand information from the workers severely affected by the situation of the country. He also added that in order to meet IMF targets, productive investment policies must be generated to produce income and economic growth in general.
The IMF is an organization, isn't it? They gave a credit of the magnitude that was given in 2018. Therefore, they are concerned to see how they charge this loan in order to have a more complete analysis because they observe the serious situation that Argentina is going through.
In Argentina, the debates on the National Emergency Decree, DNU, which will last for 10 days, began. The Permanent Bicameral Commission of Legislative Procedures began the treatment of the DNU 70 of economic deregulation issued by the government of Javier Milei. Until the next 7th of March, it will be defined if the decree meets the requirements of necessity and urgency, and if it does not legislate over the Constitution to establish its possible enforce. In order for the Commission to invalidate the decree, the rejection of both chambers is necessary, otherwise the DNU will be enacted and in effect. The Association of Parents Committed to a Haitian School demanded the reopening of schools to put an end to the paralysis of the school's activities. The parents rejected the prolonged closure of educational centers due to the violence generated by criminal gangs and the political contradictions between the government and the opposition, requested the state to adopt drastic security measures to effectively open all schools in the national territory. Furthermore, they agreed that the children of today are the future of tomorrow, and if nothing is done to guarantee their education, the dream of a new Haiti will never be released. On Friday, in the United States, Californian company Scorpius celebrated the landing on the moon of U.S. first commercial spacecraft in more than 50 years. In the meantime, Scorpius company highlighted that for the first time since the Apollo era, an American spacecraft has landed on the moon. Precisely this time, a commercial unmanned robot founded by NASA achieved the task to pave the way for local astronauts to return to Earth's cosmic neighbor later this decade. In this sense, NASA Administrator Bill Nelson noted they are working to send the first images of the lunar surface.
At every step along the way, there was a chance that something would go unexpectedly, and maybe we would not complete. But this has certainly been a very exciting time for our team.
Forward. The more we bring in private industry into this, you'll have more modular, flexible solutions, more lower-cost approaches, less regimentation of what you can or cannot do, and maybe build stuff more like building a car.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In Senegal, a group of 16 candidates for Senegal's delayed presidential elections said Friday they will not participate in a dialogue proposed by President Macky Sall to decide on a date for the vote he postponed earlier this month. Separately, the United Nations Secretary General's Special Representative for West Africa and the Sahel, Leonardo Santos Simao, met Thursday with the president to discuss the electoral timetable. Sall, who is finishing 2 terms allowed by the country's constitution, is due to leave office on April 2nd. The postponement provoked protests in the streets, which were violently repressed by the security forces, with a total of 3 dead, as well as dozens of wounded and arrested. Political leaders of the opposition described the presidential postponement as a constitutional coup d'etat. On Friday in Nairobi, Saif Magango, spokesman for the Regional Human Rights Office, referred to the terrible human rights violations in Sudan, which he denounced as war crimes.
More than 6.7 million people have been displaced by the conflict, both within Sudan and into neighboring countries. This number has since increased to more than 8 million. And as for numbers, we have information to the effect that the fatalities now stand at least 14,600 people who have been killed during this conflict. These figures have been collected by an organization that we believe to be credible, the Armed Conflict Location ACLED, the organization, and there is indeed reason to believe that the numbers are way up in the thousands.
In France, farmers demonstrated on Friday against the proposal of the French president to create a dialogue table with agricultural unions. In this regard, the farmers' unions rallied in a parade of tractors through the streets of Paris on the eve of the start of the Paris International Agricultural Fair, a week-long fair that brings annually together the government and agricultural companies of this nation. The 2024 edition of the Paris International Agricultural Fair will open opened on Saturday in a climate of intense discontent, fueled by President Emmanuel Macron's proposal for a large round-table dialogue, an option that farmers are refusing to accept. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi affirmed that the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization must become a stabilizing factor in the midst of the strong changes the world is experiencing. This was stated during his speech this Friday at the ceremony to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Secretariat of the organization. Wang mentioned that the world is witnessing changes never seen in a century, and also that it is essential to boost the spirit of the organization and work together to make it bigger and stronger. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, genocide continues by Western countries in order to steal its resources, a reality forgotten by the international community. The escalation of tensions with its neighbor Rwanda has once again brought to the forefront the desperate situation they have been suffering for decades. In the last week alone, more than 135,000 people fled the city of Sake due to fighting between the M23 rebels and the Congolese armed forces. The recent conflict has already left 2.5 million people displaced. In Spain, the death toll in the voracious fire that consumed a building in the city of Valencia on Thursday has risen to 10, confirmed the government delegate in the Valencian community, Pilar Bernabé. The head of the Court of Instruction Number 10 of Valencia opened preliminary proceedings to investigate the causes and circumstances of the fire and has decreed the secrecy of the proceedings in order to protect the police investigations and the privacy of the victims and their families. The event occurred on Thursday afternoon in a building of 14 floors located in the neighborhood of Campanar. The fire started in one of the floors and spread quickly throughout the rest of the building, reported Levante. According to local media, the location of the bodies was made possible by drones. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, who declared himself dismayed on the social network X, will visit the site on Friday. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.